Welcome to episode 18 of the podcast, please and thank you. It's the all-inclusive podcast where we include all the words and all the topics that you care about. So there's a lot to talk about this week. There's the Spiderman / Sony Netflix deal. There's some info on the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie coming out. And there's some info on the Indiana Joneses 5. So we got some info on that stuff. So we're going to talk about that all today. And you can check out the time codes and below if you want to skip to a specific topic. But other than that, welcome to episode 18. Haven't done one of these in a while. So I'm pretty excited to finally get back into making one of these. So recently, I've been watching Thunder Force. Made a video about that on my YouTube channel. So you can check that one out. So I thought it was kind of like a background movie. If you want to cook something, if you got a big meal that you want to cook, and you want something on that you want to kind of look at every now and then look back at your steak or your chicken that you're marinating or whatever you're grilling or whatever it is that you're doing. Or if you're a vegetarian and you just want to cook some broccoli or spinach, and there's just a lot of ingredients involved. There's a lot of time. You got an hour and 44 or an hour and 45 minutes to cook. If it's a pretty big meal, maybe you just eat a lot, or maybe you're cooking for a whole family or a village of some sorts. Well, in that case, I got the movie for you. So Thunder Force is the perfect movie for that. It plays very well in the background. It kind of just keeps going while you are cooking. You can do that if you want. I think it's a perfect movie for that. I gave it a 10 out of 10 as a background movie, so you should definitely check it out. Don't watch something big in the background. Don't watch something like Captain America Civil War or an MCU movie. A friend of mine was telling me he was like cooking food and he was trying to catch up on the Marvel movies, and he watched like Captain America Civil War or some Avengers movie while he was cooking, and I was like, what is wrong with you? Who the hell does that? Some people apparently do that. There's a special place in hell. Hell will be created and people like that will be put there because you don't watch an MCU movie in the background. That's not what the MCU movies are for. Okay, you gotta sit on the couch and a chair to watch that shit. You put it on the headphones, you go to the theater, you go with your friends, your family, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you go with everybody. That's what an MCU movie is about. It's an event, it's a life event. So anyway, let's get to the first topic of the day. This one I'm pretty excited to talk about. It's the Sony Netflix deal. So I'm gonna read the report from Business Insider. Sony, without its own streaming platform, has found a home for its movie library. The studio and Netflix announced on Thursday a 5-year agreement that gives Netflix domestic streaming rights to Sony's theatrical releases, beginning with its 2022 lineup. The movies would begin streaming after their theatrical and home entertainment windows. So basically, they're not getting the rights to any movie immediately. They would get it after their theatrical run is over, which makes perfect sense. Netflix will also have a first look option for any movie Sony is directly making for streaming or planning to license for streaming, and Netflix has already committed to a number of those. So what that means is that not every Sony movie is going straight to Netflix. It means that whenever Sony has a movie and it's bidding it out to like the Paramount Pluses, the Disney Pluses, and all those, Netflix basically always gets first dibs. So if it's a movie that did pretty well in the box office, chances are you're gonna see it on the Netflixes. If it's, I think James Bond is under that, or isn't James Bond Columbia Pictures? I don't know. I didn't see that in the list of franchises that they have. I thought it was. In case it isn't, they got a number of franchises. But anyway, I'm gonna read the rest of the news. The deal includes future Sony Spider-Man movies and other titles that are part of the Sony universe of Marvel characters like Morbius, Men in Black, Ghostbusters, Bad Boys, and Jumanji. Sony is the only major studio of the Big Five, Disney, Universal, Paramount, and Warner Brothers, without a streaming component. And according to Deadline.com, the deal is priced at $1 billion on a span of 4 years. So not immediately. They didn't get their $1 billion immediately. There was a span of 4 years. It took it's gonna take some time until they get the full billion. They're getting like 300 million per year. And then wait, no, that's not math. You see, I'm not good at the maths. But eventually they're gonna get $1 billion in the long run. So this is a super sick deal because, yeah, sure, they're getting the Spider-Mans, they're getting the Ghostbusters, whatever. Those franchises don't really matter. What really matters here is Netflix is getting the best franchise in the world right now, Men in Black. Because Men in Black has Will frickin' Smith, baby. Yeah, that's right. This new Men in Black shit spin-off thing with the Thor that they do, like, look, I didn't watch that one. I just watched the trailer. It didn't look that great. And my friends that watched it told me it wasn't that great. So I'm probably not gonna watch it. There's a lot of other shit that I would rather watch with my time. With my limited time in this world, I would rather watch other stuff. But I heard the Men in Black spin-off thingy with the Chris Hemsworth wasn't that great. Here's the thing. Chris Hemsworth, great person. Sexy human being. I would love to like eat some cake on top of him or eat an omelet, you know, on his abs or something. If there is an experience where I get to pay to experience that out there, maybe if I go to a Disney World, you know, maybe one of the rides there is you get to go eat an omelet on top of Chris Hemsworth or something while he's dressed up in a full-on Thor costume. That would be pretty sick. I would be down for that. I don't know if it would be part of the ticket entry thing or do you have to pay separately, but it doesn't matter. Money is not something that I would be thinking about. You know, if I get to experience that, I am down. But anyway, what I'm saying here is Chris Hemsworth, stick to the Thor stuff. You're good at that stuff. Stick to the action movies. Well, not all the action movies. Just stay away from the Men in Black. That's not really your franchise. You know whose franchise that is? It's Will Smith's. Okay, so Netflix basically kind of has Will Smith now. Sort of, not really. But it has the Men in Blacks, and that's like the big deal. Obviously, I am half kidding here. The big one is Spider-Man. They got the Spider-Mans. What does this mean for Spider-Man in the MCU? So there's a short answer that everybody is giving, and the short answer is it's not going to have an effect on Spider-Man in the MCU. But that's the short answer, because there is a longer answer here. Because here's the thing. The MCU, they got the Kevin Feige's, okay? And he's a really smart guy. He's a super smart guy. And they always think in like 5-10 years ahead with their story. When they're building their universes with the Marvels, they're thinking like way ahead. So here's the thing. If they're not sure that Spider-Man is still going to be a big part of the MCU, they might not have Spider-Man as a big part of the MCU phases moving on forward. Maybe Spider-Man will always be sort of like the Peter Quill of the Marvel universe. And Peter Quill, you know, the guy in the Guardians of the Galaxy, Chris Pratt, that guy. So if you would snap your fingers and remove Peter Quill from the Marvel franchise, okay, obviously I like Chris Pratt. I'm not saying I don't like Chris Pratt. I like Peter Quill, but he doesn't have as much of an impact compared to someone like Iron Man, Captain America, Doctor Strange, even Hulk. These guys have such a massive, and even Black Widow has such a they have such a massive impact on the Marvel universe. So what I'm worried about is with these kind of deals, how it could affect the MCU is that Spider-Man, when it comes to the long term, when it comes to looking at the MCU from a long term perspective, they might not have Spider-Man as an integral, super important character as part of the story. He might always be kind of like a support character. He might always be kind of like a side character, kind of like characters like Peter Quill, kind of like I'm just gonna go with Peter Quill for this analogy. But that's kind of what I'm worried about. Obviously, it's kind of hard to predict that because you would literally have to be in the writer's room to know the real answer to this. Like, is it really gonna have a big effect on the MCU? In the short term, no, but in the long term, it could, because Spider-Man may not be seen as an important character because he's very iffy. Basically, they're not sure if he's gonna be part of the MCU. So that's one of the things that I've been thinking about. Another question that was popping up is, why doesn't Sony make their own streaming platform? Everyone's making their own streaming platform. Universal, I think, is making one. Paramount's got the Paramount Plus. Disney's got the Disney Plus. Netflix has got the Netflixes. Hulu's got Hulu. Apple's got Apple TV. Everyone's having a streaming service, so why doesn't Sony have their own streaming service? Well, that's the whole thing. Everyone's making their own streaming service, and everyone's trying to make their own exclusive content, that everyone's making their content exclusive to their own streaming platforms. Even NBC is making their own streaming platform, and I think it's called Peacock, and it's all their content is exclusive to Peacock, which is kind of a funny name actually. So that's the thing. So it's almost like everyone's going to have to invest a lot of money in original content, and it's really expensive to make a streaming platform because it costs so much money to get licenses, get the rights to this, get the rights to that. And they also got to invest in a lot of original programming, and those are always risks as well. So it costs so much money to make a streaming platform. That's like tens of billions of dollars. So Sony are kind of taking the easy route, and I think right now they're taking the really smart route, and they're instead kind of being like, okay, we got a lot of movies, we're just gonna bid them out, and Netflix always get first dibs. But if Netflix doesn't want a movie, we're gonna be like, okay, Paramount Plus, do you guys want this? NBC, do you guys want this? And they're always gonna have people that want their content, because usually their content is pretty high budget, at least for the most part. It might not always be good. I'm not saying the Emoji Movie was exactly a masterpiece. Okay, yeah, sure, it's maybe the greatest movie when it came out, but I mean, right now it doesn't really hold up as much as its time. It was a movie that was great, incredible actually, for its time. But nowadays, I don't know, man. Hard to say if the Emoji Movie still holds up to the greatness of movies that have come out, like the Fast and Furious and movies like that. But anyway, so that's it for the Spider-Man Sony deal. It's actually kind of interesting because now Sony and the Netflixes are in bed together. They're in a bed that is made of a lot of money, $1 billion to be exact. And another thing that I read about the deal, actually, before I move on, is that basically it's not that Sony gives, let's say they make Spider-Man 3.5. Okay, Sony makes the Spider-Man's 3.5s. They make Spider-Man 3.5s, it does really well in the box office. They give it to Netflix, and then Netflix just keeps it. So Netflix, that's not how it's gonna work. So Netflix gets to bid on it. And I think how it works is like if enough people watch a show or if enough people watch a movie, and the person that gave it to them gets a certain amount of money. So that shit is still in place. So if they put out like Spider-Man Far From Home on Netflix and a lot of people watch Spider-Man Far From Home, as far as I know, Sony's still gonna get a cut out of that. So that has to be such an incredible deal for the Sonys. So yeah, I'm kind of a PlayStation fanboy, kind of a big Sony fan. They might not be the best at the movies, but they're the best at the video games. They got that stuff going. Another thing that's going on right now is the Sonic the Hedgehog sequel. So there's been a lot of info coming out for the Sonic Hedgehog sequel. Obviously, the first movie was a major hit, but recently in a podcast called Kellen's Petty Talk Show, one of the writers was talking, and he was saying this, and he says, I think everyone wisely realized that part of the first movie's success was that it didn't cost as much as you think it did. It technically made more than Detective Pikachu in North America, but not that much more. The reason why they haven't made a Detective Pikachu yet is because it costs twice as much as Sonic. The profit levels on the first movie was a direct relation on the fact that they made the first movie affordable. So I thought that was super interesting that both of them, at least in North America, made a pretty similar amount of money. But because Sonic didn't cost anywhere near as much, it made so much more money. Here's the thing, I watched the Pikachu movie pretty recently, and when I watched it, I thought it was a sequel to something else initially. Not because of the story, but just because of how expensive it looked. There was like so many Pokemon there, and they built this whole world to it, and I'm like, don't they usually start small with a movie like that, and then over time they build more characters and they build the whole world? It kind of felt like a sequel. So I thought that was interesting, that how Sonic is based on Earth is that how they kind of set him in our world is set them on in our Earth. He ended up being a much more profitable franchise, and that's why the movie got greenlit so freaking quick. It kind of reminded me of Ted, the Peter, the I forgot the guy's name, the guy that voices Seth MacFarlane. It kind of reminded me of Ted with Seth MacFarlane. Ted is such an easy movie to make in terms of a budget because the only person that costs a lot of money is the CGI character. Once you get the CGI character, then everything's like pretty standard. It's all standard stuff. And it's so they made a sequel to that movie pretty quickly from what I remember. I'm surprised they didn't make a third movie because the second movie was so freaking good. It was so freaking funny. But anyway, the last piece of news that we got today is Indiana Jones 5. We got some news about that. They just recently added Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and also the composer John Williams is returning. So according to Polygon, I'm going to read the news from Polygon. Disney announced Friday that composer John Williams and actor Phoebe Waller-Bridge will be joining Indiana Jones 5. Waller-Bridge, who is known for Fleabag, I didn't watch that, Solo, a Star Wars movie, a Star Wars story, also didn't watch it yet, but probably going to watch it at some point, will star in the new movie alongside Harrison Ford, who will also be returning as Indy. This will also be the first Indiana Jones movie produced by Disney, since the studio acquired the rights to the franchise when it purchased Lucasfilm in 2012. Indiana Jones 5 is set to bring everyone's favorite Nazi fighting professor back in theaters in July 29, 2022. So, a lot to unpack here. First things first, Harrison Ford is 78 years old. I just looked this up. Harrison Ford is 78 years old, and he's going to play as Indiana Jones, an action-packed he's going to play as Indiana Jones in this action-packed Indiana Jones movie. That is freaking awesome. When I'm 78, I hope that I can be even half as cool as Harrison Ford. Being 78 years old and playing someone like Indiana, Jesus Christ, man, that is freaking awesome. When I grow up, I want to be as much of a badass as Harrison Ford, even if I could be at least 10%. Give me 10% of Harrison Ford's badassery. That would be awesome. That is all I really want in my life, is to get 10% of Harrison Ford's badassery. But anyway, another thing to unpack here is that Disney has this is going to be the first Disney produced Indiana Jones movie. And Disney, they haven't had a great track record with the Lion King remake, the Aladdin remake. Those movies have all been like pretty generic. Like they were like all okay. So I don't think they're gonna take that route with Indiana Jones. I think they're gonna, they're gonna treat it like an MCU movie. I think they're gonna do a lot of research. They're gonna try to figure out exactly what it is that people want out of this movie. And I think they're gonna try to take, I think they really need to make a lot of references to Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford just being old. And it's time to I think Tom Holland is gonna be in this movie too. I'm not 100% sure on that. But I think they're gonna have to kind of have Harrison Ford pretty much pass the torch to a new Indiana Jones, because we're not gonna have Harrison Ford forever, folks, unfortunately. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting to see what Disney end up doing with the new Indiana Jones. And a lot of people didn't like the Crystal Skull thing. I liked the Crystal Skull. Here's the thing, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I don't remember much of the movie. All I remember is there was aliens at one point, and I remember that Shia LaBeouf was in it. I remember really liking Shia LaBeouf. Okay, and I remember the aliens. I thought the aliens part was weird, but I remember enjoying a lot of the movie. Then again, I was a kid. I think I was a teenager at the time. I can't even remember when that movie came out. It was a while ago, so haven't watched it in a long ass time. But I just remember enjoying it, and I just remember it not being as bad as people said it is. But who knows? Maybe if I watch it now, I'm gonna be like, holy shit, I was wrong. This is pretty bad. So we'll see. So I'm pretty excited to see what Disney end up making, because Disney's got that budget, and everyone's gonna go and watch the new Indiana Jones movie. The demand for an Indiana Jones movie, especially a good one, is definitely 100% there. So I'm pretty excited to see what they end up doing. And lastly is that the director is going to be James Mangold. I'm pretty surprised it's not Spielberg. I don't know if this news is out of date, but I thought it was Spielberg for some reason. But according to this article, James Mangold is going to be the director. He's the guy that directed Logan, which is a freaking masterpiece. And he also directed Ford versus Ferrari, which was also a really awesome movie. So I'm really excited for that. Everything I'm reading about the Indiana Jones 5 movie is awesome. We got Harrison Ford. We got an awesome director. Disney is a freaking awesome studio. So I don't know, like, can this be bad? Maybe I'm gonna eat my words later on, but I don't know. I don't think there's a way for them to screw it up. At least they're not gonna screw it up as badly as the previous movie. Assuming that it actually is bad. I barely remember much of the movie. But, you know, looking at how the reception of it, I think people are they're gonna go back to the drawing board and try to figure out exactly what went wrong with that movie, etc., etc. But that's it for episode 18 of the podcast, please and thank you. I'm pretty happy to be back. I'm always trying to figure out where to go with the direction of this podcast, and I think the big thing that I need to figure out how to do is I just need to pick a direction and just head there. So I'm just gonna pick a direction now, and we'll see how this podcast evolves over the next few years. Also, I forgot to say that if you're on the YouTubes, make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification icon. And if you're on the Spotify's, make sure to click on the follow. I think that's how it works. And if you're on the what else? There's the iTunes. Give me a 5-star rating. That would be great. I don't know if I have any reviews on iTunes. I don't even know if I have any listeners on iTunes right now. I think mostly it's the Spotify's and the YouTubes. That's how people have been finding me. And I get a couple of listens here and there from the other platforms, but not really much in comparison. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you guys for watching. And as always, peace out.